Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to this week's episode of the Digital Law News Series. So I'm joined today with my colleague Peter, and we're just going to be discussing some of this week's news stories that have come up that are to do with the things that we work on at work. So just for those who don't know who are new here, Digital Law is a niche law firm based in the UK, and we specialise in all things to do with data protection, cybersecurity, and things to do with technology matters as well. So I'll just pass over to Peter, who will introduce himself and give you a bit more information.
Thanks, Laura. So my name is Peter. I'm the Managing Director at Digital Law, and as Laura says, Digital Law, we do what it says on the tin. So everything from data protection to e-commerce to data transfers, and we've got quite a busy week to update you on. A few interesting stories about data protection, cybersecurity, and technology. So I'll let Laura kick off.
Great, thanks, Peter. So yeah, the first one today is regarding the Spanish bank. And I'll let Peter try and pronounce this one when I pass over to him. But basically, this Spanish bank has been fined 6 million euros. 6 million euros for violating Articles 6, 13, and 14 of GDPR. So just to give those who don't know much about GDPR a little bit of background, Article 6 is in relation to the legal basis of processing data. So they was if I'm right correctly, they was sharing data across their organisation and relying on a legitimate business interest rather than gaining the correct consent from their customers. And then Articles 13 and 14 as well cover data such as making sure that you have privacy policies in place, and then giving data subjects whose data you collect the correct information in terms of how you process, transfer, and store that data as well.
Indeed, that's absolutely right, Laura. And I think what's interesting here is the bank, which I think is CAXA Bank. Apologies to any of our Spanish listeners who are sort of rolling their eyes at the Anglo-Saxons failing to pronounce it properly, but it's spelled C-A-I-X-A. They're a very big bank in Spain, a very big sponsor of different things, sports events, cultural events. And they've been hit here for 6 million euros, which is the largest fine given to date by the Spanish Data Protection Authority. And indeed, it's for a fundamental misapplication of failing to have a clear privacy policy detailing exactly how they comply properly with GDPR. And indeed, then failing to transparently have the information in there to give to their customers and to other people whose data they handle. So I think the big takeaway from this is when you are looking at an organization's privacy policy, it's not just there for window dressing. It has to accurately reflect how that organization uses its data. And if it's not doing that, this is what can happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, I think it is big for Spanish to do a big fine like this. And the fines are getting bigger and bigger ever since GDPR came into place. So 6 million euros might not seem as big as some of the other fines, but it definitely is for Spain.
It is. And of course, we looked at Grindr last week, which I think was 10 million euros. We've had BA and Marriott, which was in the 20 million euro range, though originally, of course, they were going to be at least 5 times higher than that. But they were reduced largely, I think, due to the economic circumstances of 2020 and the global pandemic. But the point is that the fines we are routinely seeing are far in excess of anything that we used to get under the old Data Protection Act and Data Protection Directive. And I think clearly, will 6 million euros be a problem for CAXA Bank? I don't think so. Will the bad publicity around this be a problem? Most definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. So moving on to our next story for today then. So this is in regards to some guidance that the NCSC, so the National Cybersecurity Centre, have put on their website, basically warning the public, that's supposed to say public, not pub, of the threat to their personal data following cyber breaches or attacks. So basically they have seen that 46% of UK businesses actually reported incidents in the last year, and they're putting out this information, basically warning people of the effects that after suffering, after a company suffers the attack, what could then happen to your personal data. So you might start receiving different emails, different text messages and things like that. It's just basically warning the public of this and basically saying what you can do to prevent worse things happening in the future. So making sure you change your passwords, not clicking on suspicious emails or suspicious links, and so on. But I have put the link to that guidance on the screen as well. But you can just go onto the NCSC website, and it would be good for everyone to give that a little read as well.
Thanks, Laura. I mean, you've covered most of it there. I mean, the key thing here is that, you know, the NCSC has its mission statement of trying to make the UK the safest place in the world to do digital business online. And they're just trying to raise this awareness. So if you do get an email from an organisation saying your data has been breached, and I had one of these just last month from an organisation that you'd have thought, well, sure, it's your business to look after personal data, but unfortunately they were holding their hands up and admitting they had a problem. And it therefore make you think that, yeah, now that you know that your data has been breached, you could receive spurious emails, but it could also be text messages or other communications. And it's just really trying to make people realize you have to be very, very careful and mindful of the communications you receive, and think twice before clicking on a link in an email is the, I think, the main thing to take away. But as I say, it could also be a link in an SMS message or any other form of communication too.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have got some more guidance about this on our website as well regarding phishing, and some tips and tricks on how to prevent falling a victim to a phishing attack, and how the different ways phishing attacks are carried out. So I'll be sure to link that onto any publications that we do to do with that webinar as well. So moving on to our next one then, this is just a quick story from the ICO. Basically, they're looking ahead into 2021 and giving us an idea of the things they are going to be looking at this year. So these things are such as age-appropriate design code, data sharing guidance in general, codes of conduct and certification schemes, facial recognition and political campaigning. So I think the big thing here that Peter and I discussed before this call was just basically that there is a lot of big things going on, but they are forgetting a few of the main issues around that data adequacy and things to do with Brexit. So yeah.
Indeed, that's the fascinating thing with this, isn't it, Laura? That yeah. Elizabeth Denham here has said this is what we're looking at for 2021, and the word Brexit didn't even figure. And you think, wow, I mean, the UK has currently got its the transition period for data has extended to the end of April. And we wonder, will there be an adequacy decision forthcoming from the European Commission? And for anyone listening who hasn't heard us talk about this before, the advice I'm giving to everyone on this at the moment is make sure that you are looking at your third-party contracts, make sure you're looking at your data and getting standard contractual clauses in place for the end of April. Because yeah. I would not at the moment rely on there being an adequacy decision in favour of the UK allowing personal data transfers from the EU to the UK. So if your data's on Office 365 servers and it's in Dublin, make sure you've got standard contractual clauses on that contract. And I appreciate we're going over that very, very quickly. I'm actually speaking at a webinar on data adequacy on the 16th of February. If you go along to our digital law page on Facebook, on LinkedIn and on Twitter, there are registration details on there where you can register free for that discussion, where I'll be speaking alongside a representative from the Department of Culture, Media and Sport. But the point is that there's that, you know, you'd think that massive story is the biggest thing the ICO is doing in 2021, but not according to this list. And it just shows the sheer breadth of areas that the ICO is looking at, given the rapid increase in technology. So we're looking at everything from guidance over organisations sharing data, GDPR codes of conduct. The ICO has not yet authorised any codes of conduct from any professions or membership organisations, but they are looking at establishing a scheme for that to happen. And those codes of conduct will make compliance with GDPR very, very different when it comes to sectors that might fall under those codes, and indeed would probably make it easier because it'll be more prescriptive in terms of what you should or shouldn't be doing. It will be covering things like facial recognition, of which there is far more now taking place when it comes to the use of CCTV and cameras in the street or anywhere else for that matter. And it's also covering of things like age-appropriate consent. So, for example, when we the age-appropriate design code, so it's making sure that technology where you might be having processing the data of minors on there, those below 13, making sure that that is done in the correct way and that those systems are engineered with the right protections in there from the start. And the ICO is also looking at political campaigning. Do not forget that in May this year, we will be having the biggest non-general elections in history in the UK, because we'll be having 2 loads of council elections, including those that were delayed last year, along with assemblies elections for the Scottish Assembly, and I suspect also the Welsh Assembly, but any Welsh listeners might be able to tell me if I'm wrong on that one or not. But the point is that there will be a massive polling exercise, democratic polling exercise, taking place in May. It is not being delayed due to COVID. The government has confirmed this week. So that will be happening, and all the campaigning, guess what, it'll have to be online, because current guidelines say that political parties can't do their door-to-door campaigning. So if you are a political volunteer and you were thinking of going and putting some envelopes and leaflets through doors, that's not actually currently allowed under the COVID guidelines and restrictions. Who knows, they might get a few weeks before the actual election day, but they can't actively canvass right now. So the whole point there is there's a lot for the ICO to look at when it comes to their agenda for 2021, and they're going to be pretty busy. So I think that explains the recruitment in recent years that the ICO has done to increase their resources to try and meet the challenge that they've got.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've just said it exactly right then. They've got a very busy year, and I mean, that's just a small number of things they will be looking at, because obviously we've mentioned the data adequacy, which they will have an input in as well. So very busy year for the ICO, this one.
Yeah, and of course they'll be continuing with GDPR enforcement, we should add, which is probably the biggest thing for most people, let's face it. Yeah,
definitely. They're not going to forget about that. So moving on to the next one then. So this is regarding anti-money laundering regulations. So law firms are now being told that AI can form a part of their anti-money laundering armoury. So this is things to do with, well, we know that all law firms and other regulated sectors, when they do take on new clients and things like that, you have to do the anti-money laundering checks. And with the UK being such a big space for like the online digital world and everything as well, they do say that a lot of law firms are money laundering without even realising, and doing these extra checks when you're getting thousands and thousands of people coming through your business per day can be like quite strenuous when you're doing it all yourself. So basically this article is just basically highlighting a few of the things that law firms could be doing using AI in order to kind of make these checks a bit easier. So these include things like electronic ID verification, corporation registry, beneficial owners checkers, and electronic tools to screen clients against sanctions and things like that. So yeah, it just gives you a bit of an idea of some of the things that law firms could be doing to make the process of their anti-money laundering checks a bit easier for them.
Indeed, thanks, Laura. So yeah, the guidance here to try and make this a bit more straightforward for law firms, it is 212 pages long, produced by the Legal Sector Affinity Group, and that includes everyone from the Law Society of England and Wales to the Solicitors Regulatory Authority, the Law Society of Scotland, and various other groups. And this guidance now has to be approved by HM Treasury. But the key thing here is that money laundering is such a big issue. I think there has been a perceived criticism of the legal profession and the financial services sector for facilitating money laundering. There is concern that, you know, an awful lot of individuals from all around the world very often put their transactions through the City of London and the UK. to have that veneer of respectability, but yet sometimes I think some of the things that are taking place are perceived to be a little bit dubious and could be facilitating money laundering. So this is really the legal profession saying, look, we are taking significant steps around this, and I think the utilisation of the technology here, everything from biometrics to the electronic ID verification, corporate registry, these are all things that can hopefully make the process not just a bit less of an administrative burden, but also more effective to be able to spot where there could be inconsistencies with regards to how a client presents himself. Let's face it, in the course of the last year, we've not been able to meet clients face to face like we would have done in the past. You've not been able to do that sort of face-to-face verification. It's all been over video conference or over phone calls and other approaches. So I think using technology to try and ensure that we are demonstrating compliance with the highest standards here is going to be the way forward, and that's what this guidance tries to take account of. And this happens to be for the legal profession, but I think the issues around money laundering affect everything from financial services to banking to insurance, and a large part of the service economy here in the UK. So it's a big indicator in terms of the direction of travel that the technology sector is taking when it comes to providing products that can help when it comes to money laundering. And it is, I think, a positive step here that we've got this regulatory guidance that is saying it is permissible to use this technology, and I hope that the UK becomes a leader in doing so.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you summed that up very well. So moving on to the next story then. So the next three stories, the last three stories of the day, are all in regards to cyber attacks. So the first one is in regards to the charity, the Woodland Trust. So they have actually reported a cyber attack to the ICO in December, and have since been carrying out investigations, trying to figure out what data has been stolen, how the attackers got into their system and things like that. But they then released some information about this, telling their data subjects in a statement that they posted on their website that they did suffer this cyber attack. So they just said that as soon as they'd become aware of the situation, they took immediate action to mitigate the impact and notified the relevant authorities. And they are working hard to determine the nature of the attack and to assess if any data they have hold was actually compromised. And basically they're just apologising and understanding that people will have concerns about this, but just basically reassuring people that they're doing everything they can to try and investigate and see what data has been stolen.
Thanks, Laura. And indeed, it is a bit of a concern because the Woodland Trust is a charitable organisation, so it relies on donations as well as membership fees. So we're talking about a lot of, I think, a high volume of data here, personal data, and quite sensitive data when it comes to people's, bank sort codes and account numbers and payment details. So that is something of a concern. I think the other concern is that we're now some 2 months after the event was discovered, and they're still trying to work out exactly what the damage has been. So either they'll find that there's been an intrusion but no damage was there wasn't any compromise, or it has been compromised and they're still working out the true scale of it. And so that has to be a concern. I mean, we've referred back to the NCSC's guidance on those affected by data protection breaches, so I think that's a key thing to bear in mind here, is that you may receive an email from the Woodland Trust telling you that your data has been compromised, and if you do, it is worth then being quite thoughtful about other communications you might receive purporting to come from the Woodland Trust or anyone else for that matter. So always be on your guard.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next one then is slightly a bit more worrying. So this is to do with the Serco cyber attack. So this Serco is a contractor, and they're a contract for the NHS and have worked with them with the NHS track and trace, and also the Belgium military and so on. In the article, it does say that there's been no data compromised despite the hack, but I think they are carrying out more investigations into this. So I will pass over to Peter just to tell you a bit more about it. But they have said that they have failed to secure a lot of people's data, or I might be talking about the next one there. So I'll just pass over to Peter to give you some more information on this.
Thanks, Laura. So yeah, I mean, the scary thing here is, yeah, this could even have meant that Serco is one of these massive private utilities corporations that ends up doing a lot of contracting for government agencies. So I mean, one of them that they work with is the European Space Agency. You know, it's a little bit scary to think of their data being compromised. I mean, we can't be sure here, I think, exactly what data has been compromised. It looks as though it is really a matter of they've received, you know, they have had ransomware found on their systems. It isn't clear how much their systems have been compromised, what data may have been exfiltrated. The hackers have, you know, put up screenshots saying we've taken 1 terabyte of your data and trying to get them to pay a ransom. But I think they're investigating to find out, well, actually, have they hit us, and if so, how far? So has their system been compromised? Yes, but we just don't know the level of damage. But you know, when they're working with NATO, and you know, organisations like that for whom Europe relies on its security, not great to hear that their systems have been compromised in any way, shape, or form. So yeah, not a. I mean, it's interesting that this is on the Sky News website, and it seems like this is very much a story that's just broken. And I think hopefully we'll hear more details in due course about the exact nature of this breach and what, if anything, might have, what if any damage has been caused.
Yeah, absolutely. So moving on to our last story of the day. So we found this was a very important one, just to kind of, we always bang on about saying that cyber attacks and data breaches happen to the best of us, and I think this kind of is a story that illustrates that. So the British Mensa have actually been fallen victim to a cyber attack. So the Mensa actually has some people in there that with the highest IQs. There are some very smart people in there, and yet they have still managed to be hit by the cyber attack. So they have been found to have failed to secure the data of 18,000 of its members, and since then, due to this attack, 2 of the directors have actually resigned over the breach. So I think this is again looking into how they got in, and I think after doing that, they actually established that they got into the company's website by actually using the credentials of one of the directors. So the directors were storing their passwords and did not secure them like they should have been doing. So yeah, I think they are still looking into what personal data has been stolen. But I think this was a good story to finish on, just to illustrate that point.
Indeed, thanks, Laura. I mean, the number of times that you and I have spoken to clients and sometimes trying to persuade them of the risk and the need to take precautions can sometimes be a problem. And we have, you know, we act for clients in sectors from law to financial services to accounting to e-commerce, and sometimes, you know, we sometimes deal with some very, very clever people who sometimes are not persuaded of the risk. And here we have some of the cleverest people in the country, and clearly they were not taking the risk seriously with the level of security required, because it looks here like the Mensa website itself has been compromised, and that the members are able to log on to the Mensa website, and it is their login and password information that has been compromised. So the point is that it looks like that password information was kept in an unencrypted form. So once hacked, you can then see the details of all of the members. So you would expect a fairly basic level of encryption to be on the case, so that even if it was compromised, a hacker would not be able to work out and would not be able to access that data. Yet in this instance as well, looks like they compromised one of their own directors' login information, which allowed them to gain access. And compared to our previous story where we don't know what the damage was, in this instance we know the damage already, because Mensa member credentials have already started to appear online. So it is clear that there has been data has been exfiltrated, and they are now having to deal with the consequences, and the immediate consequences are the resignation of 2 directors. But I think the wider consequences are a fairly major blow to your reputation, really. You know, I mean, I think anyone seeing that you know, the title of this story can't fail to see the irony. So I think that is indeed an interesting one to finish on there, Laura, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's everything we've got time for today. So we just want to bring your attention to the special offer we still have on regarding our GDPR compliance manual for legal practices. So this is for legal practices, but we have had some feedback from some of the people who have purchased this, who are in accounting and other like services such as financial services, and they've said that this has been useful as well. So those who are in like regulated sectors like the legal sector is. So this is down from £195 to £99, so around 50% off. So it does contain checklists and everything like that that will help you gain more knowledge and experience of what you should be doing for GDPR. But I will pass over to Peter just to give you a little bit more information.
Thanks, Laura. So I think it's safe to say that if Mensa had brought our guide here, they wouldn't have been hacked, because we do contain case studies in there. There have been examples in the past of websites that have been hacked and this sort of thing happening. So, you know, if Mensa had paid the £99 there, then they would have been able to see the worst that could happen and could have done something about it. And it does indeed contain the forms and templates and checklists to help you with getting a handle on practical compliance.
Great, thank you. So yeah, just a reminder then, this webinar is recorded and is available as a webinar as well as a podcast as well. So we do post this on our YouTube channel, on Spotify, on different podcast channels as well. And then it is also uploaded onto our website along with any information that we do mention during this. So I just want to say thank you once again to Anson Evaluate for helping us produce this webinar, and we will see you all next week for another episode. Thank you.